Well, ladies and gentlemen, grab your glow sticks. It's time for the Restless 200K live stream celebration. Pastor Michael, we have to start, as you might know, we have to start by thanking Pastor Robbie Gallaty, also amateur DJ, as he revealed to his church a couple Sundays ago, for these sweet beats that we're getting to start our first ever Restless live stream with. So we're thankful that he uploaded this track. He named it Sanctify 1, and he uploaded it to SoundCloud so that we can use it for our backbeat to start our first ever live stream. So I am your host, Matt, joined as always by Pastor Michael Bowman. And this is Restless, everybody.
Here we are, first live stream.
Here we
first
are.
Time.
And we are certainly living in the most YRR timeline of any of them. Driscoll's back. He's preaching through Song of Solomon again. Everyone's talking about TGC articles online. What else is going the YRR way these days? The Arminians just released a really thick book trying to refute Calvinism. Like, I mean, we're so back, Michael.
This is our time.
This is our
really,
time.
Things have not yet peaked, right? Like, we thought that we were doing a postmortem on New Calvinism, but really, what we did was we restarted it. That's what it feels like.
Yeah.
It all came back. It was like, as soon as we were like, let's make a podcast about this, it was like, here's all the content you could ever want. We're all back, baby.
Yeah.
Mark Driscoll's back on top. Mark Driscoll has a whole podcast about him, and it didn't even stop him.
Right.
So here we go.
Yep. So we're happy to see that here on the live stream, Charlie Self has entered the chat. But the other thing we really have to give credit to are all the Australians there. So happy Australia Day as that comes up this week. So as you know by our title, this show is actually dedicated to Australia, Charlie Self, and a bunch of good Reformed questions we are going to be doing here. Man, dude, these beats. I mean, if you played this in your service and pulled out glow sticks, I mean, it would be hard not to dance. I mean, I'll give this pastor that, but
it's not bad. I am no, I don't know, what do you call it? I am no techno DJ. So I don't know if I can make the best judgments, but as far as I can tell, it's a lot of fun.
I mean, you're no Robbie Gallaty, right? You have not preached in David Platt's pulpit and published multiple books on discipleship. But I guess all there is really to say is, if not the regulative principle, why not? Why not just during your sermon bust this out? So I think the Reformed advice, what do you think about this, Pastor Michael? The Reformed advice, if you're a pastor and you want to have a personality, start a podcast, right? Is that the general?
That's probably true. That does seem, if you want something outside of just your regular day-to-day, that's probably a good hobby to go for.
Yeah. So everybody, as I probably make a failing attempt here to watch the chat, I don't know how that's possibly going to happen for us, because we're still doing this show, but it's so fun that there are people here with us, and so we do wish you the best. I mean, we want you to attempt to derail the show and ask us questions live, and we'll do our best to engage with them.
Honestly, so we do. I mean, a lot of the podcasts we edit, not like a lot. We're not like editing tons of content, but we do edit a little bit here and there, or maybe you and I would go on a tangent about our personal lives or something that we'll take out. So it's a little bit of a different dynamic when it's like, this is everything. It's just straight through. Here we go.
Yep.
There's no stopping it at this point.
Let's give this great. We got to throw up this great comment though from one of the people watching, is that Michael looks like a true establishment Presbyterian, whereas Matt looks like he might be mining crypto in Mongolia.
You do, or like you have a live stream, but it's actually a live stream doing Minecraft.
Yeah, that's right.
Like, 30 subs.
Yeah, get on my Twitch stream after this. No, this is just the Presbyterian bunker that Michael keeps me locked inside, so that my takes can always be TR and not influenced by the broader world. And so we're ready to go. This is fun. We're doing it in the afternoon. This is what works out, but like I said, I think we're going to do this more often. Maybe what we'll do, maybe we can plan our next one, Michael. We can do whatever our 1 Timothy 2, I do not permit a woman to teach, Valentine's Day special. We can do that one on a live stream.
Let's on Valentine's Day.
Yeah, I've got a lot of kids. What are you going to do? Go on a date? So, all right. Well, let's get into some of the stuff that we have planned. We're going to go hour, a little over, something like that today. And so we have. I just thought.
I did not. By the way, I didn't convince Matt to do a 200-minute stream.
Yeah,
it's not going to work. Maybe another time.
This weekend I smashed the side view mirror off my van. So as soon as I leave this, right. So let anyone think that we are. Our importance is growing. I'm going to go and I'm going to go frustrate myself through a basic car repair the moment we're done here. And so, which will be great for me and the van having a side mirror again. So, Pastor Michael, one of the things that's really interesting is the 12 days of Restless. We should almost always do things like that because we get lots of people responding to us, interacting with us based on the things we do. And so
yeah, it's really fun. It's really fun too. And I don't know, do you think it's just because we're getting that daily content out, so there's just a lot more traction?
It probably is. Yeah, it probably has a lot to do with that. Obviously, we do more topical. We we go wide ranging. And so I actually thought I would just quick share the top 5 most downloaded 12 Days of Restless as of today. By the way, everybody, we're excited. We have probably more than we're close to 210,000 downloads by now. So it would feel kind of cheap to just do a 250,000 download celebration, unless we just do another live stream. That'd be fun because it's kind of like that probably is going to happen a little bit sooner than later. Right. And so the number one, maybe this one won't surprise you, Pastor Michael. The number 1 and number 2 ones were the episodes on Matt Chandler and Reformed Ecclesiology. No surprises there.
Yep, it has Matt Chandler's name in the title,
and it's right,
inevitably,
and it's whatever our podcast is. This is the content most people subscribe to our feed to get.
It's what they care about.
Right.
Even if there's other things that we care about and we think everybody should care about, there's definitely times when we put out episodes where I'm like, that was some of our best content we've ever done. And then it's like, and half as many people listen to it.
Shout out
they're here for Driscoll. They're here for Chandler.
Shout out to you, 2 Peter series. We love you, and we're going to finish you. So the second one, again, no surprise here because it was such a riot to do, that the He Gets Us Doesn't Get Him episode.
Which is a killer name, by the way. I just want to say that was a good name.
That was a good name. And so then the next one, this one was actually the big surprise, but I think just the title again, it's got that grabby title, 25 most influential books in church history. That was a surprise coming in at number 4.
Yeah, I would not have picked that one.
Yeah, I didn't expect to see that one right at the top, but again, it's kind of a thing that's going to have really broad appeal, and it was a great, interesting discussion. Regardless, the next one, probably one that we enjoyed maybe making the most, was 12 minutes of irresponsible hot takes.
It was the most fun, hands down.
Yep.
Hands down, it was the most fun that I had doing the 12 days.
And
I mean, it was just good.
And when my wife heard me editing it, she's like, "Oh wow, you do stuff like this on your podcast? I got to get this episode." So oh man, guys, I have a horrible now that we're on a live stream, it's like, man, can I get Michael to do a spit take? It's a new horrible goal I might have.
I'm going to be careful so that does not happen.
And so those are our top 5. The 2 honorable mentions would be our low energy Driscoll episode and our episode on the Aussie pastor, which we will be coming back to for all our Aussie, oi, 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 kangaroo, koala, and wallaby kind of friends. So, but we've also been getting reviews, and we always promise that when we do these kinds of celebrations, we'll share some of the reviews of the show. So, Michael, I think you have some of those reviews pulled up. Why don't we...
We're doing it. So I've got 5 different reviews that we'll share throughout the course of this live stream. We're going to save a couple of them, but let me just do a couple because we like to share them. We like to do it. And there will be a negative review that we'll share later. So we don't just share the positive ones.
That's right.
Maybe this isn't like helpful because it might incentivize bad activity, but we will always share in some light the negative reviews. It's just more fun rather than the simply positive reviews. But we do want to shout out some of the people that have reviewed the show. So first, these are coming from Apple Podcasts, by the way, because I'm not totally certain how to find them in other places. So that if there's a way to do it and somebody knows and you want to send those to me, I would gladly share those as well.
Yep.
But this one is this says, so good. This is the title, so good. I appreciate the candor and the way these guys show other sides and biblical perspectives on popular evangelical tweets, podcasts, etc. And this actually ties to another one I want to read. This is Good Kind of Fun is the title of this review. Both of these are 5-star reviews.
5-star.
And it says, this is one of my favorite podcasts. Well, shout out to you. Because it says they mix having fun, being a Christian, with serious theology. And we've talked about this recently. I do think that is kind of what we're trying to do in a lot of ways, right? I mean, we want to bring a little bit of fun into the fundamentalists.
Right. I mean, as we've said, there are plenty of great, serious, reformed theology, just straight teaching. And that is not.
And God bless them.
That is right. I listen to
seriously, God bless them. We listen, really great. But also, we wanted to do something a little bit different, maybe.
Because what's natural to us is discussing topics like this and also laughing. That's the nature of our friendship. And when we were together in the pastor's study, Michael's very nice looking pastor's study, that was the nature of our discussions then. And so we're sticking with it. So thank you for everyone who gives us a 5-star review. If you're watching right now, which are a few people, which is fun. You could go right now and give us a 5-star review. You could give us a 5-star review and then tell us things you don't like and would like to change. But please just, go ahead and give the 5 stars.
Only give the 5 stars. If you want to give a lower star review, please visit some other Reformed podcast.
That's right. If you really like Avatar, you can go ahead and review someone else's podcast on Avatar. So we've got we are packed full of topics today. So let's work through some of the feedback we've gotten on the 12 Days of Restless. Let me give you, as I always say, we're kind of going to be doing additional feedback on these things, all kinds of stuff. So we're going to start, though, first with something of, I guess, kind of a correction. We mentioned the SBC being partnered with the He Gets Us campaign. I received a message that after the director of the North American Mission Board apparently researched it more, they pulled out. And here's the statement. I just, because we have Southern Baptist listeners, I feel obligated to make sure everyone knows this. Ezel said, Kevin Ezel, that's the guy's name. However, upon further consideration, the effort is too broad for us to directly connect with the campaign. In my desire to help our churches, I did less diligence than I should have. That's on me, and I apologize. Although NAM will not be involved, we will pray that the conversations begun by this campaign will lead to gospel-centered conversions and cause many people to seek and learn about Christ. So, Pastor Michael, so again, for those of us in the PCA, the idea that if something is too broad for the entire SBC, maybe the most broad, like,
what is it even?
Yeah, exactly.
It is, at this point, it is just oxygen. It's just ubiquitous. It's shared by every single person on the planet. What is distinctly Christian about it at all?
Yeah.
That's the question.
I'm out here. I talk to non-believers all the time. I have not met a single person who has mentioned this campaign. I saw that thing. No, I actually, I was watching some sports ball event the other day, and I saw my first one on TV, actually. And so I saw the Jesus was definitely a refugee coming over the border commercial, and that was pretty amazing. Now, let's just say, Pastor Michael, it would be pretty shocking then, right, if any Presbyterian or Reformed minister said, "I'm going all in on on he gets
You
us
mean-
right. No,
you
no,
mean
I don't. No, I don't
You
mean
mean
any.
like maybe like I don't know, doing a sermon series
Yeah,
based upon he
yeah.
gets us?
I don't
That'd
know.
be wild.
It would be.
I can't imagine
Yeah.
it happening.
It also is. I'm glad, right, for how the ruling elders in the PCA teamed up to be like, no, we can't do this, because, again, to be clear, the Southern Baptists were like, upon further review, this was too broad.
Also,
for
I
us.
love that it's like upon further review, like we did do our due diligence. How much money were they going to give to this thing? Because
Yeah.
I think it was a lot
Yeah,
of money.
oh man.
Like a lot of money. And it's like, sorry, I didn't read past the first page, but that millions of dollars, I just didn't know if I'd have to read more than that to know where to send this money.
Yeah.
Like that's, there's something when you're dealing with as much money as I assume they were dealing with, maybe it's good to slow down a little bit. Do your due diligence from the start.
Maybe. Now, Pastor Michael, there is one subject, and we shouldn't leave it waiting any longer, since we have the Australians here on the live stream.
Yeah, shout out to all of you, by the way, because there's a ton of you.
Which is fun.
I think it's a majority Australians that are tuning into this live stream. I'm not positive, but I think that might be the case.
That's what I tell my friends. I'm big in Australia. I am. That's. But the subject that we got, it was not one of the most downloaded, but the episode we got the most feedback on from the most different people was our episode on the Aussie pastor learning there was no third way. And Pastor Michael, boy, oh boy, have I learned a lot more about that situation from all of these people. And I'll tell you what, I think that the situation is even more interesting and even more convoluted than we had any idea. Yeah, we had no idea going in. So I don't know. How do I do this? Do I just start reporting all the interesting extra information and we comment on it as it goes?
I don't know. Is there a way you can summarize for us some of the stuff that you got?
So here's the first thing. Here's maybe the biggest thing of why it's way more related to our show than we ever expected. He is kind of the face of the young, restless, and reformed in Australia.
Wow.
We
didn't even know this.
No, we didn't. Guess where he was?
We just stumbled into it by providence.
Yep. Guess where he was a church intern and was maybe you know this because you were in our chat, and who mentored him.
So if I remember right, somebody in our chat shared that he was mentored by the one and only Mark Driscoll himself.
He was now again, that person, our patron, who I will not name because they live in the same state as him. So this is on authority. The further confirmation of this is an Acts 29 church, and he has preached at Matt Chandler's church, right? So like, he's very much
right?
Pretty recently. Oh yeah, in the last and it was somewhat it was regular enough that like apparently there's at least an understanding, and I don't want to say for sure because I don't know, that there is an understanding that they're some kind of friends, right? Like the appearances at each other's church were frequent enough. People thought, man, this might be they're kind of friends.
Yeah, they have some kind of connection together.
So that's the most interesting. That's the one of the most interesting details that just was so surprising. All the Australians, I will say, we heard from the interviewer who they all call Koshi. He is not popular with any of them. I get the vibes that this would be like any pastor sitting down to do an interview with like Rachel Maddow or Brian Stelter, right? Like,
okay,
this is the kind of like you know, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. This
right.
person. This is who this guy agreed to do an interview with, and so they all were basically on that guy's side. They basically all had like the lowest possible expectations for how he would behave himself, which appears to be what he did, right? Now, here's an interesting thing about Australia. So I'm kind of giving these big context pieces, and then we'll move through, because they didn't all actually agree on their feelings about how he did in this interview and what it was.
Which makes sense.
Of course, it makes sense. Yep. The other big thing to know is, so his church is in the state of Victoria, so he's in Melbourne, and I'm not saying that like an Australian, even though I know how to. Um, it's in there. This, get ready for this. It is, this sentence is illegal in Victoria. Your homosexuality is a sin. It would be illegal for you to say that from a pulpit or to a person individually.
Wow.
You could say the Bible states homosexuality is a sin. But what you noticed, right, the difference is I'm applying it to someone, to some.
Yeah, so it can't be direct. It can't be actually applicable. You're just making like a historical fact about
Correct.
this, religious text.
So again, the added pressure. And so this is why, and one of the listeners said, so when you hear the interviewer keep pushing him saying, but you say homosexuality is a sin, your church says homosexuality is a sin.
So he's literally trying to entrap, right?
Yes.
He's literally trying to like get you shut down.
Yes. Now, obviously, what all the kind of Australians agree is he should have been then at least able and ready to say that the Bible is crystal clear and it teaches that homosexuality is a sin, right? Like that he should have, like, again, the like evasiveness we felt and watched is still going on, because knowing that question was certainly going to come, he should have basically been ready at least with that. And they said, obviously, and based on your convictions, potentially, not everyone would have to, right? They weren't demanding he say more, but potentially be willing to say like something more and face the consequences, because he's one of the largest churches in that area. And lots of the smaller church pastors who we heard from said it would have given them so much more backing, right? Like it would have given them cover if the like well-known, fairly well-liked,
the guy with lots of connections,
yes, is willing to get on national TV and take a stand for the word. So that's kind of the, can you just the man, like we have our Australian, it's just wow. Just that's what when someone said this would be illegal to say in Victoria, Australia.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
Coming soon to a Western country near you.
Yeah. Do you have any thoughts on these broader contextual things before I tell a little more of the story then?
Yeah, it's interesting how the deeper we go into this, having just done it, very peripherally before.
Right.
We watch an interview going in. I didn't know anything about this guy, anything about this club. I don't know anything about this stuff. But just going in now, like even as you add more details, basically it comes to kind of similar to where we were, where there was this, like, you feel two different ways. One, I wish you would have stood for the truth more firmly and clearly. And also, I don't want to be on the side of the bad guys who are clearly the bad guys trying to attack and trap you. Right. And I feel that exact same way as we've pulled out a little bit further. Although, again, it just keeps getting deeper. So maybe I'll wait till you share more.
Right. Yeah. So again, so there is a big feeling of we'll just say of a division on how he did, and then we'll get to the I didn't realize this. Guy Mason is in has a different, perhaps even bigger controversy than this going on within YRR circles. And again, I'm not getting into like personal like church things, but like public teachings, right? We're, again, the things we focus on the show here. But so the ranges basically say like what we have is the ranges. So our friend who we've interviewed, the other Paul, shout out to you. He was basically like, this was atrocious. This man did not stand for the word. This man caved, and shame on him. Are you surprised that was his take?
Usually the other Paul really holds himself back.
I wish I had the tweet to put up on the screen where he was like, where he just was like, yeah, this guy, let's get him out of here. Don't be ashamed of Christ.
Usually such a gentle man, the other Paul.
I know. So, man, we look forward to having you back. So, we had a Baptist pastor who's been a lifelong fan of Essendon football, which is the team. As we keep getting as we keep going deeper in, right? So he's on a national show, and he agrees that like this is was not a good showing, but that his basic overall feeling is like this was truly like we can't ignore, because he's like, you guys don't know how difficult right a position it is, and that's obviously what we've been trying to show here in here on the show. So this church, City on a Hill, has campuses in 3 different states, and they are part of these are the churches that people think of when they think of like Reformed churches. So this is why I say this is like the YRR, the face of the YRR in Canada. So he's been there since the church's foundation.
Is that?
I mean, sorry, not Canada. He's Australia. I was reading someone's comment, and so right, he's a writer.
It's hard to keep straight the
That's right.
totalitarian states, you know.
And so basically, and then he added this information that that later the football club and this guy, they kind of released a joint statement. I don't think the guy got his job back, where they like apologized and they said, yes, faith is part of what we need to tolerate, right? So everything so far, other than the like multi-campus, YRR stuff, that's we've all been still, and as we should be. Like I said on one of the little live videos I did during the 12 Days of Restless, the biggest thing I took away from that is when Michael and I sat down and he said, wherever this goes, I'm on this guy's team. I'm not going to be on, as now we know, Australian Rachel Maddow's team. I'm going to be on this guy's team. I want him to do good. I want it to go well, and I'm not going to root against him. And that's been what we've done so far. So perhaps now is the time where we have to complicate our view of that.
I knew this was coming.
A little bit.
I knew any time that we go to bat for somebody pulls out something and they're like, actually, they're the worst person you've ever met. Like,
yeah, I don't know that. It's like, it's one of those moments where it's like, well, okay, not Reformed, as we often have the lesson learned from the YRR. Like, well, just evangelical again. So the first person pointed me to, again, another Yankee talking about this, a Yank named Al Mohler. He gave commentary on this issue. And so we, of course, originally were really on the like club. We were with the club manager who got fired. Al Mohler claims, and so send him your emails, that the club manager didn't even know that his church held any of these stances. And so he just joined, got on the board, and then got into trouble. And he was mostly brought in to like fix business things. And that Albert Mohler kind of presented it as like, wow, like when he was first asked about it, it was kind of a, wow, I didn't realize they held that position, which makes that a lot less awesome.
And he was an elder, correct?
Yes.
So he's an elder.
So
also, shout out, I see the other Paul just joined the chat. I don't know if he was here to hear us shouting him out.
The other Paul, we shouted you out. We're talking about our good friend, the Australian interview right now. And so the other issue that we have we had brought to us is, so one, this club manager maybe wasn't making the courageous stand we gave him credit for. But secondly, Guy Mason has had a bit of a difficulty, and maybe the way we can present this is, let me present to you a yay, nay, or nuance of a statement from a recent sermon at a quote unquote Reformed church in Australia, Acts 29. Here we go, Pastor Michael. Yay, nay, or nuance. Honoring the image of God means affirming transgenderism.
God, boy. Oh, that's rough. That's a hard nay, but man, what a mess.
Yep.
This shows us for going to bat for anybody,
Ever.
just for having goodwill. I just have a good heart, and I want to go to bat for people.
So
I want to love you. I want to support you, and this is what we get.
So I started listening to the sermon that this was from, and it was so bad. I just gave up, man. It was, and like this is, and again, our Australian friends in the chat, if they want, like this is apparently, at least in Victoria and Melbourne, like this is what's known as like reform. This is just like, again, this is just the evangelical move of like trying to like affirm the like whatever goodness there is, you know, like trying to find something the world cares about and trying to find a way. So it was basically like, you know, we need to love our neighbors by caring about transgender rights and these kinds of things. And this was a large function of the sermon. Now, I'm not going on this just on what I heard in this sermon, nor just what some of our Australians wrote to us. We also had a patron send us an what I thought was unrelated, but very related, a church here in America writing Acts 29 about why they are leaving the network. Which again, what's a network? What does that mean?
What does that mean to leave?
Yeah. So this guy that left Acts 29 for seemingly good reasons, we'd love to have you on. We'd love to know like what your ecclesiology says about leaving a network or what that means. I'm sorry, I almost did a spit take on myself just thinking about that. And do you want to know what one of the stated reasons was?
Oh,
Guy Mason.
Wow, really?
Yes.
You know, I remember seeing this in the chat, and I read like some of this letter from this.
It's very long.
I mean, I was kind of skimming it. I did not notice, and I don't even remember if I remembered Guy Mason's name.
Right.
And so if it would have said, you know, that big YRR Acts 29 Australian guy, I would have had a better chance of understanding.
Right. So let me just read what they wrote here. By the way, Guy Mason, we'd totally interview you because it would be a wild and interesting. After this discussion, we'll never get that interview. But how great would it be to get the interview with the guy that is like the YRR face there, who apparently knew Driscoll, who apparently is friends with Chandler? Like, how great that would be.
Seriously, set it up.
But given the fact that we've openly now laughed at a section of a sermon, that is unlikely. So here is what they wrote. As you already know, in a sermon that has since been heard by tens of thousands of people. Wow, this guy apparently has reach. Guy Mason of City on a Hill in Melbourne, Australia, stated that Christians can and must lean into the rights of those who identify as transgender. And they say, certainly you have seen the sermon. This statement is deeply troubling. When I asked a question regarding this statement and the position of Acts 29 on our internal community, do they have some kind of internal Acts 29 social media? Which again, why can't I be on that? What a interesting. I don't want to be there for like these kinds of things. I just want to know like what do they like talking about. I have still received no response. Nothing was ever said or shared by our leadership. A few months later, Mason preached at the Village with no mention, explanation, or defense of his previous statement. That was a statement in itself, and I believe many pastors in our network took notice. Wow. So Pastor Michael, this is everything. This is. I mean, we could go on this. We've been doing this for 15 minutes now. Where does this leave you? What thoughts do you have on this whole overall? Let me just put on the screen the other Paul's thoughts, which is the puking emoji 25 times.
On brand.
Yeah,
very on brand.
He says
here.
Victoria is their California. So he's another great one from the other Paul, that it's only a matter of time before whosoever will not affirm the validity of transgender identity, let them / they, of course, be anathema. So that's good stuff.
Man.
That's good stuff. So
yeah, it's just such a mess. That's my thought. Right?
Yeah.
Like what a mess. Also, here's my second thought, and it should be my first thought actually. I mean, God bless you guys who are working within various faithful bodies and churches in Australia. We're connected. I don't even know how. Like one of the blessings, by the way, of having a podcast like this and being able to get to the point of the size that it's at is that we've connected with tons of folks down in Australia.
Yep.
Like, shout out to you guys. We've got patrons and others that have reached out to us over time, and we do pray for you guys, and we're really grateful. I'm grateful to hear of the true gospel ministry that's going on down there, especially if the Reformed the face of the Reformed Church is this.
Yeah, I think that, man, the one thing I think is like the other blessing of knowing Australians is if this is the kinds of things going on there, like everyone in America needs to like take a moment and like think about how long it will be before things are more like this here in various states or nationally, or what would prevent it from happening, right? Because I don't think that there's any reason to assume that, that just because they're on a continent of, prisoners and criminals, that it'll never get to our glorious continent.
He couldn't help it. We love you guys. He couldn't help doing it.
I understand. You're either a criminal or a kangaroo, right? I get the culture. Happy Australia Day, everybody. But the other thing I think is, I think the other thing is definitely huge shout out to all the people, right? The little Presbyterian church that we've heard from, even this Baptist pastor who's a fan of that footy club. Definitely that these people are doing whatever they have to maintain their integrity. And then, of course, the other lesson is, as always, was the YRR Reformed? Maybe it believes in the doctrines of God, but I don't know that other than that, anything classically Protestant, anything classically Reformed is really found there. It's just, as we like learned as we did this podcast, like 3 episodes in after studying things, we're like, oh, it's just evangelicalism again.
It's just evangelicalism again.
So, we need a massive here. Another massive shout out is now coming here. So, Pastor Michael, are you ready to close the book for now on our good Aussie friends?
I mean, not on you guys.
No.
We're closing the book on Guy Mason. We would never close the book on you, our faithful listeners.
Unless he will come on this show. And I'm willing to take almost any, well, I wouldn't say any, because he could be like, yeah, we can't talk about Mark Driscoll, Matt Chandler, that sermon, that interview. Then it's like, I don't know what there's, I don't want to talk about your TGC articles, man. Like, I don't know. But what TGC articles I do want to talk about, Pastor Michael, are Charlie Self.
Charlie Self.
So we had a great listener. After this, maybe you can read a few more of our reviews, because this guy told us that he said he wanted to say just thank you for the encouragement and all the joy that he gets from listening to us. Now, I'll take the compliment, man, but I do have to say I'm going to hedge that a little bit with what I'm about to say next. And so he said, hey, I was just listening to your 12 Days of Restless on Charlie Self. So funny, and it made me curious, so I searched him on FB. It turns out I have one mutual friend with him. Here's a link to his Facebook page. Here's a page to his staff's, his church page. Pretty big bummer, though, right? Because that was hilarious. Then he went and said, yeah, he has a personal site, Charlie Self, drcharlieself.com/about. Wow, he's Assemblies of God, which we had mentioned more than a year ago. But yep. And so the thoughts about him being more similar to a robot, maybe that's kind of the joke. And I said, and what I told the guy, and I'll tell all of our listeners now, is like, wow, there's only one possible thing I can conclude from all of this evidence this guy, presented to me. That Charlie Self has created a bot to try and convince me he's real. That's the only possible.
We are all Charlie Self. Charlie Self is ubiquitous on the internet. Charlie Self is the internet.
I mean, at this point, I don't know if we're not going to get to this probably, but with ChatGPT, I mean, literally the things that are on that. If I write a TGC sounding article on if I can fire someone at my workplace, like,
dude,
that's what it's going to spit out.
Here's the deal, by the way. This is a good time to shout this out. This is not live right now, but we do have one particular special announcement on this live stream.
Oh, we do.
And it's for our patrons.
Wow.
So anybody who is a patron, a follower of ours on Patreon, we have 2 new shirt and potentially other things. It might go on other things, but 2 new designs for shirts that are going to be exclusively for patrons.
Mm.
One of them is related to this. That's all I'll say. I will actually share. I will get a picture of it. But one relates to this. One relates to the Battle Hymn of the Republic. Also, that's all I will share. But I will share it in our Telegram chat. And we don't currently have them up in a way that you can purchase them because we are not sure how to do that.
Yeah.
In the way that we are just keeping it for you. So we're working on that and we're trying to figure it out. But we do have those coming very shortly as part of the 200K celebration. We thought it'd be fun to make some of these designs for merch that we've been talking about a lot in the Telegram chat and laughing a lot about. But we, haven't quite done it. So we've got some of that coming.
Once I can, I'll have to wear a Charlie Self one for our next one of these. So
this would be great. We'll get one ordered.
So,
I want one too.
Pastor Michael,
pretty cool.
Do you want to give us a few more reviews? Because man, we're gonna have to do some rapid fire, which will be fun. Which maybe means we'll need some. Which might mean we need some pump it up in the background at the end, because we're gonna run out of time with all kinds of stuff we have. Because we have at least two kind of bigger subjects, and we have a clip we really think people will enjoy us watching, and so and watch with us, because that's the most fun thing about the chat is you can now watch the Driscoll or sermon clips we find with us. So do you want to read any more reviews for us?
So I will read two more, and we'll close out on the high note of negative review.
Ooh, all
because
right.
I think it'll be fun to ask you if you think this is legitimate.
And we have a chat.
First,
people can tell us too.
Yeah. First, here's another 5-star review. Shout out to all you guys giving us 5-star reviews, by the way. That really actually helps. We kind of play it up a little bit as hey, only give us 5-star reviews, but it actually does help. Any review that you're willing to go and make, it just helps get our stuff in front of people who might not otherwise see it, right? I like to think that, we're making it out of the bubble that we're typically in as far as the way that, different Reformed podcasts are kind of pigeonholed. But my guess is that we're mostly in a bubble. And so it's nice when we can kind of get out of that a little bit more because, a lot of what we talk about, we think would be good for other folks. But here's one review. It says, edifying show looking at the young, restless, and reform movement by two guys who went through it and gradually moved to a reformed confessional position. So that's a solid review right there. And then here's this, Matt. So we did get a 2-star review.
Oh, 2 stars. Hey, not 1 star. I love
it's not one.
I think the really interesting
we
reviews
have
had. The truly interesting ones have to be though I'm not going 5 or 1. I'm not going get this out of here. I'm like, I thought about it. The value is about at a 2-star. So anyways,
yes.
hit me with the 2 stars.
Yeah. So it starts out by saying it started out well.
Oh.
So here's the substance of the review.
Okay.
And just see what you think about this, because I think it's good to talk
Our
about.
stream started out well too, by the way.
Yeah. It says listened for a long time.
Wow.
But you can tell the added listeners have gone to their collective heads.
Ooh.
Take a break,
Wow.
calm down, and reset. You're beginning to speak out of turn. Finish your training, then come back.
Okay.
Matt, what do you think about that review?
Oh boy. So, I'll say, by the way, if it has went to our heads, dude, we should just quit, because the most I think our live stream tells me we have 10 people watching, which is really fun for us. But that means if this modest of a level of success has already ruined us, that would mean if we ever had 100 people watching this, which probably will never happen, I would become Mark Driscoll and start making everyone sign NDAs and destroying everyone around me. Apparently,
right, we would prove he's actually a far better man.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what this would do. Somebody would be doing a much smaller rise and fall of the Restless podcast.
I totally don't have any idea how much has changed. I assume one thing that is probably true about that is I assume things have changed in some degree, because when you're talking to 10 people and when you're talking to 500 people, 1,000 people, you do say different things. I will say I don't know if we're speaking out of turn any more than we ever have, because the first most enjoyable review we got like this was from our good friend Feral Doc. Feral Doc, you can shout out.
Shout out to Feral Doc.
Every time we celebrate something, Feral Doc
comes up. It's not a joke.
up.
We laugh, but I'm not even kidding. I love this guy. I really do.
And so
I have nothing but love in my heart for him.
So there were people that basically loved, and I like, one of the things that caused us to make some new friends is when we reviewed D.A. Carson and Tim Keller explaining the meaning of 1 Timothy 2, what it means when Paul says, I do not permit a woman to teach. And we went in ready to listen, and the I don't know, second half of that is just full laughter, because at some point we realized they were never going to say what it meant. And so from that moment, we're like, we have been willing, to perhaps use a tone that some people say is not good, some people say is fine. People are divided on it. Now, it is interesting they've been listening for a long time and now think that. So this is my first request to everyone listening today. Dude, if you're like, man, I've been listening for a while, this is so fun, I wonder when I'm going to review it. Today would be a great day to do it, so you can't dock me those stars.
Like us,
yeah,
review, please.
Please review us when you still like us. If you're going to.
Yeah, no, I think so. Here's one of the things that is true, and especially as we have gotten bigger. Number one, I think that we have gotten better at just broadcasting or like technique. I really think we probably have. I've listened to some of our older episodes and thought, we weren't like, I think we probably weren't quite as comfortable, right? So we've gotten more comfortable, even to the point where sometimes I think undoubtedly there are going to be times that we cross the line. I know that's going to happen because right now it feels like I'm just talking to you, right? Yeah. And you and I, like the way that we just talk to each other in private is a lot different than what we're typically going to do for 1,000 people.
Right.
But sometimes that it comes across that way in part because that's what it feels like for us. And that's one of the dangers probably of podcasting.
Right.
And I also know that we like to play it up, right?
Sure.
We're literally doing a 200K live stream.
Right.
Like, wow, look at us. We did 200K. And that's not like, seriously, I don't know if I can, express this. It's not because we take great pride in this, right? Because if you saw our regular lives, we're literally regular guys.
Sure.
Like there's nothing like spectacular about like our normal lives.
I mean, look at my background. Look at my background, everybody. Like
especially look at Matt's background.
Dude, undisclosed location is the only way to describe it. That's probably how I'm going to introduce if we ever do this again, that I'm broadcasting from an undisclosed location.
Oh man, from this bomb shelter. Yeah, like I mean seriously, like we just live very normal lives. We're not like in these big churches where, we're super well known or popular. If you knew what it was like to be a confessional Presbyterian pastor where I live, it means nothing. Right. Like nobody cares. Right. I like to think my congregation is thankful for the ministry, but outside of that, it's like, it is obscurity. Right. Yeah. And that's fine. Like, I'm very happy in the position that I'm at, but like when we do this on the podcast, in part, like I am, and I think you do it too, right? We're kind of playing roles, right? Like we're playing things up, we're hyping things up, and we do this just the two of us too. We have fun doing this, but there is an element, I would say, of almost like an acting, right? Like it's just because it's more fun, right? It's more entertaining, I think, when we act this way, as opposed to maybe, hey, we're never going to bring up the fact that we've been able to like take what was just a conversation we had at a pizza place and turn it into a pretty significant podcast in the Reformed world. Mm-hmm. That's a fun thing to talk about. Yeah. And I think that's probably a lot of what comes across.
Well, in part,
I actually understand. I think it's possible we could come across that way, especially when people don't know us,
right?
Or like even, our patrons, they don't know us super well, but like they interact with us regularly. And there's like times that they're like, hey, actually let us issue corrections. Let us tell you why you're wrong. We'll be in discussions and share something and people will be like, hey, you're not right. And here's why, or I want to defend that. And that's good. We like that. But, it's not like hey, you can't do that because we are the kind of guys that have a big podcast. Don't know if you noticed, we're kind of a big deal.
There are two things I'll add to this and then we'll move on. this is just the indie band dynamic, man. Back when all these people did was play my tiny little venue, and I knew them there. You know, the moment they went on a tour, it was trash, and so that dynamic will always happen, and I don't blame anyone because I've had that feeling. But I think the other thing of what, if I were to say what gets played up, obviously we have, you know, we tell intentional running jokes or whatever. But I think the big thing that when I talk to you here and when I talk to you other times is, one, we obviously we purposely attempt to keep, we do even with the joke we made at the beginning, like if you want to have a personality, if you're a pastor, you want to have a personality, have a podcast, right? Like, we do separate it very much from our everyday lives. And when I talk to Michael this way, I can't ever talk to him like he and I have all the shared knowledge and experience we do, because that's actually not something that's shared. So like, if we're going to let's talk about Guy Mason, I have to say, okay, we're now talking about, right? Like, I have to say that, whereas with us, because of natural dynamics, we don't have it. But again, now I'm getting into the weeds of how boring, how you broadcast,
and the live stream viewers are just dropping.
So, but
it's gone from 10 to 8.
So
from 11 to 8.
I know.
They're dropping like flies.
So let me make one statement of what it would actually mean for us to speak out of turn. And so actually, this is something we, again, probably have been criticized on both sides of. Tim Keller is the perfect example. Because he is an elder in the Presbyterian Church of America, right? There are podcasts where you'll just hear him said, this man's a heretic. He's evil. He's bad for the church. Michael and I don't feel the freedom to say anything like that, nor would I say I think that, right? Nor would I say that he's...
Yeah, we don't think that.
Yeah,
but also, even if we did,
right,
I don't think we'd feel free to say it like that on a podcast.
Because that would truly be speaking out of turn. Because there are things we are bound to by the word of God and by the church of how we can or cannot speak. And so if we violate that, which is of course possible that we will, likely we will or have, it's fine, to contact us, right? Like, I broadcast with someone who I literally have some accountability, right? We not only have accountability as Christians, but we have accountability in membership of the church body and presbytery we're part of. And so, And obviously for me, the scariest thing that ever happens is when this show is brought up to me by someone from the presbytery, because I'm like, oh man, because again, it's I put this out here and I do stand by what we do, right? But now, that's the thing that actually probably would shock people, is whenever someone in real life says, hey, I was listening, that's the moment where I'm like, oh man, that's a bummer. Because it's again, it feels pretty divided to me. So
also, it is just weird, right? I mean, it is a weird thing, even just to do this, right? We're live streaming.
Yeah.
Sometimes this is something I think Darren Doan once said on his podcast, who, shout out to Darren Doan. He's got another podcast out, which I love. But he does a lot of stuff just with marketing, social media stuff. One of the things he's talked about is a lot of people are like, oh, these people that you promote something they do on social media a lot, man, they must be really full of themselves. And obviously that's true sometimes. But also, do you know how humiliating it is to put something out, or even to look at yourself on a live stream and be like, right, man, everybody's seeing my mannerisms and they're hearing my voice and it sounds like this, and they're hearing me say and and all of these things. But ultimately we've thought there's great benefit in doing this. It's literally born fruit, even just in our personal lives, right? Offline, and it's born fruit, and so it's become valuable to do.
Yeah, we love the relationships. That's the best part, is the people we've met through this. So let's go on in the show. We got to keep moving here because we have two big things, and then we're going to have to do a little rapid fire. So, Pastor Michael, we have a guy, and this guy's offered to be a guest on our show. Always appreciate someone offering to come on the show. He's a friend of the Presbycast, so this isn't just a random person, right? He has a blog. He's broadcast before. I believe he's kind of a libertarian-minded Presbyterian. And so he was interacting with the comments we made about Christian nationalism. And so he said he writes about and talks about the Presbyterian view of disestablishment, right? So this is obviously the idea of no kind of established religion. And he says, for example, that would be preferable, and that as Presbyterians following Hodge, we should hold to that view. right? And so this idea of an established religion isn't even new in the modern age, right? This is what the neo-Calvinists were representing in Hodge's life. And so that there is like, and he says even the Reformed Hodge opposed even this idea of that we're not going to try to form one church or anything like that. We're going to just have a general establishment of some kind of Protestant, or not even Protestant, just Orthodox Nicene Christianity.
Mm-hmm.
And he said that basically Hodge opposes that because of the fact that whenever the government would have any kind of role, there's always coercion involved. And so therefore, because there's always necessarily some kind of violent coercion involved, even like these kinds of forms of these kinds of things would be negative. Now, I'm going to let you respond to that, but then I'm going to. I don't know if one of the things we were saying wasn't heard by him and others, and so I think I should clarify it a little bit. But yeah, what do you think about this? Again, if we want to talk more about this, he said, I'll come on and we can talk about this at length. He really appreciated what we did with the Deacon of God, putting together the confessional things, right? So again, this isn't an attack, right? This is a very friendly engagement on the subject. And so, but what do you think about this idea, Hodge? Again, we're doing such a cursory overview, right?
Yeah. I don't know. That's what I'm going to say.
Great.
So this is actually something I was thinking about earlier this week. So I actually had a guy reach out to me that listens to the podcast and to my personal podcast, and was just, just encouraging about some of the work we do. And one of the things he asked me is, because I always put out there, especially on my personal podcast that I do, Theological Grazing, I just say, hey, if you want to talk more, if you have, any questions or thoughts about this, just email me. And I give my email. And so this guy did. He took me up on it, which is great. And that happens pretty regularly. And it's really fun for me because I get to go deeper in certain ways than otherwise. You get to actually interact with a person as opposed to when we're just putting these out. And it's like, I know people are listening, but it just feels disembodied still. But anyway, one of the things he asked me was about resources potentially on church state type issues and, ideas of Christian government and all of that. And one of the things I told him was, I really don't feel like I am the right person to give a lot of recommendations on this. Not because I've never thought about these things. I do, right? I do read about these things. I do study them some, but it's cursory, honestly, in part because I just don't have time. Yeah. I'm intrigued, I'm interested, but I just don't have a lot of time for it. Yeah. And so I've benefited from the work of a lot of other guys. Shout out to Andrew Smith. I saw him in the chat earlier, and Caleb Castro over at Once for All Delivered podcast. Check that out if you haven't, but they're doing some great work with some of this stuff, I think. And I've been really benefited from their podcast. And so I listen to these things, but I don't totally know what to think. I've got ideas, I've got thoughts, but I generally am, I have within me two wolves. One of them is pretty strong libertarian. I want to just farm and pasture and be left alone, right? I've got that German farmer moving to Wisconsin or Iowa vibe that I don't care. Leave me alone. So I've got that going up, but then I also just I tend to lean more so toward thinking there should be some kind of established religion. I don't like the idea of an established religion that is maybe really narrow, right? I don't know that I kind of like the idea of an established Presbyterianism, but only as a fun ideal to talk about, not as a real thing when I think about reality. But having some kind of, established religion as a country, I don't know if it's possible at this point for us. I think it might be right though. I think it might be necessary even to maintain a national unity. Yeah. And that might be hard because sometimes if there are multiple, kind of vying for establishment status, that obviously creates significant problems and tension. So I know there are problems, but I definitely lean in that direction. But I say that again and saying, I don't know. I really don't.
All right. So that, I think, makes me say we're probably going to book this guy's interview. Hodge is a hero, so I'd love to hear this guy who's read a lot about Hodge. Now, let me make the point that I think we were making specifically Our specific point in the things we did over the 12 days of Restless regarding Christian nationalism were obviously not like what we did with Stephen Wolfe, where he came on, he explained his view to us graciously for about an hour. So that obviously wasn't it. The point we were making in and so I think it would be actually great for us to have someone present a very hard other view. I think that'd be great, and do it from historical reform sources. Love it. So we'll book that. That's coming up. What my point was when we were talking about the president of the SBC or these kinds of things is my feeling is that where we're going is any statement of Christian truth, any statement of we are going to oppose the murder of children. We are going to protect the natural family and promote the natural family through law is going to be called Christian nationalism today. That's the point we've been making. So before we're so quick to be like jumping on the bandwagon of everyone around us, of the world, saying you're right, those are the bad guys, those are the people, right? That's Trump.
Right. They think that's us.
They think that's us.
You and me. Right.
And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to read something Charles Hodge wrote in his Systematic Theology on the Fourth Commandment. You can find this on page 343 if you own this, or it's in your massive church library, as Pastor Mike, as people have commented here on yours.
It's right over.
So let me read this, and Pastor Michael, you tell me if this probably gets called or not, what this sounds like to you. If Christianity requires that one day in 7 should be a day of rest from all worldly vocations, the government of a Christian people cannot require any class of the community or its own officers to labor on that day, except in the cases of necessity or mercy. Should it, on the ground that it had nothing to do with religion, disregard that day and direct that its custom houses, courts of law, and legislative halls should be open on the Lord's Day, and public business should be transacted as any other days, it would be an act of tyranny and would justify rebellion. It would be tantamount to enacting that no Christian should hold office in their government in any way, or have any share in making or administering the laws of the country. The nation would be in a complete subjection to an imported group of atheists and infidels. Do you think Charles Hodge, in what he just said, gets called a Christian nationalist today?
Probably. I can't tell. Is he arguing for that, or is he
He's saying that if you're that the government of a Christian people, if it would require any my watch just talked to me. That's never good. Charlie Self is listening.
Look out.
If the government,
the screen starts to fuzz and all of a sudden it's just code. No.
We're lost. That basically, if any group of its officers or any class of people is required to work that day except for in the cases of necessity and mercy, if they're just going to disregard that day and say everything should be transacted the same way regardless, that on a Christian people would be an act of tyranny, because you are forbidding Christians from then being able to hold public office or take certain roles, because they would therefore have to break the Sabbath to do it. And he's saying that that would be worth an act of rebellion by said people.
Wow. Yeah. No, I mean, obviously that would be called Christian nationalism of some kind today, because it's taking seriously the biblical commands and how that applies to the Christian life, and then applying that to how they might be able to interact or not with the civil realm. That makes more sense now that you explained it. I couldn't quite follow it, I think. But,
sorry.
But yeah, the idea, so with a majority Christian populace, if they're taking seriously the Lord's Day as a Christian Sabbath, they in essence would be shut out of public office,
right?
If
certain roles, certain
civil
vocations
realm itself was not willing to accommodate that,
right?
Yeah,
and I think, I just think that that calling that tyranny is something that would immediately get him labeled that way, right? That this,
right,
that we're living in a world where this what I think what Michael partially is getting at when he talks about the two wolves is that there does require some kind of consensus on ultimate things, right?
Yeah.
That's the question. So I look forward to booking that interview. But Pastor Michael, we have to move on because we are already over time, and we are going to have to. And there's a clip. There's a video clip I want us to watch. So as people have known, we have gotten the joy of. We have gotten the joy of. I'm going to try and share our screen and have something not go wrong. It's going to be interesting to see if I succeed. Here on the live stream, guys, the kind of thing you don't normally have to. So there we go. So Pastor Michael, with our recent Avatar panning that we did, we realized that Driscoll is once again, he is playing vintage clips of himself, right?
He's going back. He's using them.
And look,
it's like the way was cleared. It's
that's
like,
right.
Hey, everybody was reminded of this stuff anyway. It's not going away. We might as well start using it.
And so look at this young, fresh-faced man that we're about to listen to here. So we had a listener say, yeah, these are coming out semi-regularly. So this one came out a week and a half ago. And so I just thought we
really don't, but I mean, at least I don't. I think that technically our Restless like Instagram account and stuff follows Mark Driscoll, but I don't ever check his stuff. I never see it. So we really do get all this stuff from people that listen to us.
So I am hoping this will give us some classic Driscoll fire, because this video is titled "Jesus was." I haven't watched it. No.
Okay.
Jesus was a sinless man, and he knew there were appropriate times to get ticked off. Enjoy this throwback clip from the Vintage Mark series.
Vintage Mark series. Oh, it's gross, but anyway.
Oh man, dude, what vintage is this? Is this Mark clip? I'm
Example A of what it looks like for ministry to go to your head.
Yeah. All right. So you'll have to tell me if you can hear it, and we'll assume everyone can hear it if you can.
Things are worth being angry.
You got it?
I got it.
Oh man, and he's already fired up.
About some things are worth fighting for. Some things are just wrong. Did Jesus ever get angry? Yeah, he did. He goes to the city of Jerusalem. He goes to the temple, and he sees that the worship of God has been turned into a commercial business to rip people off and take advantage of them. And he never sins. Jesus is sinless God. We believe that. But he flips.
Dude.
He's overthrowing.
By the way, I don't know how you become a worse public speaker over time, but based on all the sermon clips we watch, he has become a worse public speaker.
He's become worse because it's all canned now. It's Scottsdale Mark. But
tables.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, you might not want to be putting out clips about the people who turn the ministry into a commercial business.
What makes Jesus so angry? What's the one thing Jesus got angry about sinlessly? People turning this into a business. I bet those guys in the temple, they published a book and they had the temple use the tithes to buy all the books so it would be a bestseller. Monsters.
Oh boy.
Sorry.
Fucking merchandise. It would be as if God, Jesus, came to earth, walked into a Christian bookstore. Next thing you know, there's Thomas Kincaid paintings flying out the door.
Just a quick note. Only time I went to a Mars Hill campus, of course, they had a very large bookstore selling things. So
he's just jumping up and down on Michael W. Smith and Caedmon's Call CDs, and the whole self-help section goes up in flames, and he's punching holes in all the stupid posters with verses out of context, telling people to be happy. Some things are worth being angry about. Some things are worth fighting for. Some things are just wrong. Oh. And I know we live in a world where they tell you, no, it's all opinion and perspective. Look, I'll tell you this. If there's no God and there's no truth, then there is no right and there is no wrong.
Oops.
And if there is no right and there is no wrong, then we lose our right to be angry at sin, evil, injustice, and tyranny. And that's a tragic loss.
The Word of God doesn't just tell us what happened.
Oh man,
it
look
tells
at this.
us what always happens.
Unfiltered.
And it's again.
Some things
oh man, that said unfiltered since 1996. Come, please, I need that. Oh, I just need that still. Oh, give me that still. Vintage Mark, unfiltered.
It tells us what always
since 1996.
Wow. Vintage Mark. It is brutal.
It is
how commercialized it gets right at the end, right? Like how not aware you must be, or very aware and just cynical, right? Like you just don't care anymore. That you just have no shame about it anymore. To talk about the problem of commercialism and then to brand it as vintage Mark, like look at us.
And this YouTube commenter geniusly said he must be monetizing that channel, so he's got to get clips that will actually get people to watch, basically. So
yeah.
All right, Pastor Michael. So I think that brings us to where we need to start doing some of these things on speed. We have to get not on speed. I'm not on speed. I did finish my my
really got into our heads. And so,
but I think the way to do it is we will not put Pump It Up in our background, but I think we should once again put that excellent techno track Sanctify One behind us. Thank you.
I wish you were set up in your bunker to have lights flashing or something behind you.
I know, Robbie Gallaty. We wanna bust it in, and so we actually have one comment here in the comments. So I guess commenters live, if you want to get something brought in late here, this is your chance because we are gonna quick give you hot takes on things we find here. And so, all right, here we go. So someone asked when we were talking about government, Chris Ragsdale, who interacts with us regularly, love it. He says, so does general equity theonomy, by the way, boo, we're boo on that because those are not the same, but does the movement of general equity theonomy make more sense or seem more acceptable than some form of monarchy? So what do you think, Pastor Michael? There's your first hot take we're looking for.
Oh, is it better than monarchy?
Yeah. So it's like, because that's obviously becoming popular with people. So is that like, we should like that more than just like a straight kind of monarchy?
That is an interesting question, and I would say I'm undecided. That's what I would say. Yep. I don't like a lot of the guys pushing for what they call general equity theonomy. I like a lot of what they're saying. I like a lot of their thoughts on where things should go, or the way we should apply certain laws. I obviously we've talked about our disagreements in some light, but also I don't know that you can make a case from scripture that 100% monarchy is wrong.
I don't think.
And so I just don't know at this point, I guess.
I think you certainly can't make that case that a monarchy is 100% wrong.
Right, just flat run, because obviously it was instituted by God himself at one point.
And there is and Paul does not in his teaching on the civil magistrates say, and God forbid a monarchy.
Right.
Again, working out things that actually make sense about the human condition and these kind of things.
Yeah, maybe it's not best.
Yep. All right, so here's the next one. We're, again, like I said, we just have to do these rapid fire. So this one I love. This was a question we got. Person said, what are your thoughts on the National Center for Family Integrated Churches and the issue of no Sunday school and youth ministries? By the way, they have a documentary. I don't remember what it's called, but it was the first documentary I watched, and I was like, oh wow, I guess we should keep kids in church. So what do you think, Pastor Michael, specifically about their hard, no Sunday school, no youth groups kind of the kind of stand that they take?
Yeah, I also watched that documentary.
Do you know what it's called?
It came out. So generally speaking, I think that churches are too age segregated, right? Most churches do run a basically industrialized model where everything is age segregated. That is a problem. Kids should be with you in the church service. Everybody should be a part of it. The problem often with the National Center for Family Integrated Churches and a lot of the stuff that's come from them is that what they actually do is they have a kind of patriarchy that says the father is basically, this is my words, they would obviously not say this, but the father becomes like a god. He becomes basically a kind of ruler that has no accountability with others. And so it actually it seems like it's led to a lot of abuse over time. The general idea that we shouldn't be so age segregated in the church, absolutely, that's good. Does that mean Sunday schools can't be age segregated? Does that mean no youth ministries? No, that's not a legitimate jump, right? Like that's too far. But they bring up some good points for sure.
That's right. So I think that I pretty much agree. I think that they recommend churches, and I do know that there have been churches that are basically like home groups, kind of led by fathers, right? And so I do think that they're making a generally valid point because of how right? Like, again, that you can go to a mega church and it will have a sign that says no one under the age of 12 permitted, right? Like that they literally are like violating the Lord's commandment to let the children come. And so when these guys come on, it's like, yeah, of course, these guys are making a brilliant point. However, I don't think, one, the idea that the father of the family should give the family the Lord's Supper, unbiblical, because a father is not a officer in the church. The family and the church are different. Two, come on now, we can't just, like, you can't ever instruct people this way, right? Paul instructs wives and husbands specifically. He instructs children specifically, and so it's okay for us to do so. And in fact, we should want there to be at least sometimes where we have Christian young people together, because that's how they date and have Christian families.
Yep.
All right, Pastor Michael, I'm going to put a question on the screen. This one is going to verge on the kind of thing we often don't do.
I saw it. I was like, oh yeah, we need to do it because they put it in the chat.
I want a hot take on whether there is a way within the PCA to deal with TEs like Scott Saul's doing a sermon series on He Gets Us. The answer is yes. If you're in his church, there is the Matthew 18 process of approaching him, of talking to him. There are church courts as well for this. And again, those are two pretty broad answers. The PCA is connected, but obviously we, just like all of American Presbyterianism before us, we are always wondering we are feeling the battle of, we must affirm Christians who have a valid profession of faith as in the church, and how does that affect how we want to enforce our confession and our convictions, right? Welcome to the experiment and challenge of American Presbyterianism. That's my answer, Pastor Michael. I'll let you answer, and then I will pull up a few. I guess we got a couple of tweets to go on.
Yeah, no, I thought you did a good job. I think that's true. I think that's a good way to put it. It is hard to draw the lines, right? Like where are we going to draw the line? But there are ways, and there are ways that men are taking advantage of as well. And taking advantage of maybe sounds like a negative context. I mean, there are means that are being used within the PCA all the time that a lot of times people outside of the PCA, or maybe if you're not involved in the courts, you just don't see it as much. But there are ways that men are going about seeking to, either carry out discipline or just exhorting and trying to, help one another just on that, personal level when it comes to some of these issues that are coming up.
That's right. Okay, so someone asked if this will be on a podcast. Yes, it will be on a podcast later. I'm going to give one take. Would it be considered plagiarism if the president of a large denomination was using ChatGPT as their sermon? I don't know. Probably not anymore. It would be less plagiaristically than if they were caught using docents' sermons. So I'll leave it there. Pastor Michael, we have 3 tweets some people asked us to respond to. You get 1 minute apiece. Here we go. Here's your first one. It is, why do you guys like Tim Keller so much? Speaking of us and the PCA in general.
I don't even know what that means, because we've obviously been pretty critical of Keller. Most people don't like us because they think we're too critical of Keller. But I like Tim Keller because I think he's actually a really thoughtful and interesting guy, and he's done a lot of good for the church. I also think that some of the stuff he's done and taught has had really bad consequences, and that is something that everybody should be aware of.
All right. Next up, here's our next one for you. Pastor Michael, quick one for you. How do you square predestinarianism with the problem of evil?
Easy. I'm going to go with Boethius on this one and say, because evil doesn't exist.
Oh, he's taken everyone. Let the L's come in the chat if you are not that like Neoplatonist.
I would gladly nuance that someday when we're not doing minute events.
All right. Well, there you go. Next up, here we go. Last one on our way out for the day. All right, here goes. This is a great question, by the way. What's the difference between a Presbyterian and a Christian? Pastor Michael, love the question, by the way.
Well, while all true Christians are Presbyterian, it's just kidding. So, being a Christian just simply states that you are in Christ, right? That you by faith have been united to the Son of God. But when we talk about Presbyterian, we're talking about a specific subset of Christians, usually specific denomination, particularly designating those who follow a Presbyterian form of government.
That's right. So, yeah, basically we would, unfortunately, like, it's so funny to think about because the overlap of Christian and Presbyterian is so nebulous. I would say, yeah, we're a subset of the visible church. We of the true holy Catholic Church on earth. However, there are certain kinds of Presbyterian churches in my town that I would not say do meet the don't meet the qualifications of being part of the universal holy apostolic church. And so but basically we believe, as our reading of the scripture and what the church has instructed us, that this is the consistent application of scripture and teaching. And so we're not the only kind of Christians, but as a funny Baptist keeps saying in his YouTube videos, we are the ones with superior theology. So we hope this has been as fun for everyone. Thanks for everyone in the chat, especially. You guys have made doing this a special kind of fun.
This was really fun. And shout out to all of you guys, right? Everybody who will listen to this later, everybody who gets to watch it later or see it. We really are. We're grateful. Even if it has gone to our heads a little bit, we really are grateful for all of you that listen and interact with us and help to sharpen us and sharpen what we're doing here. Right. And hopefully it is of tremendous benefit for you.
Pastor Michael, thanks for spending the afternoon with me this Monday.
This has been fun. I've really enjoyed it.
We've been it's been great. And so we will catch you all next time.
That's enough.
Hey, thanks everybody. I'm going to cut this out, obviously, but I just want to say thanks, especially to everyone who is in our YouTube chat. And so that was really fun to get to put your guys' comments up on the screen. And so we're thankful for you all.